The man stared at Myung-go, unable to understand where this stranger came from and why he intervened in a conflict that didn't concern him. The red-bearded man shouted his questions to the stranger, wanting to understand who this Yeon Hwi Chon was, as the boy claimed, and why he was involved in this matter at all. Myung-go introduced himself as the leader of the Blue Dragon Squad, calling himself Dragon Sword. The boy was furious, asking if the man believed that his actions would go unpunished. Hwa Yun stood behind the boy, extremely surprised. The nickname Myung-go used was familiar to her. She became curious about what he was doing in this village and why he mentioned her husband's name with such hatred. The mercenaries lined up, looking at the boy with disdain. They said they had no idea who he was talking about and that they came to this village for a reason. They would leave only after settling everything. Myung-go didn't expect the bandits to engage in a peaceful conversation, so he decided to act ruthlessly. He felt no mercy for such people. The commander shouted for his squad to regroup and prepare for an attack. It was time to teach the bandits a lesson and set an example for those who dared to repeat their actions. The Blue Dragon warriors reacted instantly. They assumed a fighting position that differed in technique from the commonly accepted teachings of martial arts. The bandits observed the squad's actions, only smirking at the effort the soldiers put into their maneuvers. The mercenaries believed that these warriors would find their death in the village today, so strongly did they believe in their own strength. Redbeard focused his energy and directed it towards his comrades in battle. The bald one believed that the warriors themselves expressed a desire to leave this world, and he was happy to let them do so, even helping a bit. The black and white ghosts rushed at the Azure Dragon squad. They intended to eliminate the enemies as quickly as possible and continue interrogating the village residents. However, the members of the Azure Dragon squad were no cowards. The soldiers confidently stood in a defensive position, anticipating the enemy's attack. The man in the white mask broke through first. The warriors pointed the tips of their swords at the approaching enemy. They had no intention of sparing the bandit, relying on their skills to quickly deal with the opponent. The man in white clothes was cunning, a skilled fighter who had fought against the strongest opponents. The bandit avoided the enemy's trap by jumping up over the heads of the men, surprising those present. They did not expect such agility from a man in white. The white ghost made several sword movements in the air, leaving the men of the Azure Dragon squad with no chance. The mercenary wiped out part of the squad, which had prepared for battle in just a few minutes. The remaining part of the Blue Dragons prepared to repel the attack of the bandit in the black mask. The soldiers received the command to hold formation. The thug grinned maliciously, just like his comrades. He was strong and knew that even such well-trained warriors could not inflict significant damage on him. He rushed into the center of the group, threatening to decapitate all his opponents. Myung-go watched as the scoundrels dealt with his people, and anger boiled inside him. He was responsible for the lives of these people. The boy marveled at who these people were, whose appearance resembled demons, and their behavior was no different from that of crazed wild beasts. He carefully looked at the appearance of each of the opponents again. These people were truly experienced warriors, and something in their demeanor alarmed the leader of the squad. He recalled rumors about legendary mercenaries who were masters of torture. If the black and white ones were devilish twins, then the red-bearded one was a harbinger of the bloody moon. He was an adept in the most sophisticated tortures in the world and took pleasure in tormenting his victims. Myung-go and the third group of his squad fell into a trap. The demons closed in on them, defeating most of the Azure Dragon squad. The red-bearded devil laughed evilly. Now the warriors of the Blue Dragon resembled more mice trembling in fear. The man asked why the leader did not listen to his words from the very beginning. Then his people would have stayed alive because the bandits had no business with them. The leader proposed that those who remained sheath their swords, and they would spare their lives. The warriors of Myeonggo were anxious. They all wanted to have a future. The soldiers whispered that their opponents were too strong. They also recognized the red beard and would prefer to die instead of being tormented by his methods of torture. Myeonggo ordered his men to sheath their swords. He had already sacrificed the lives of their comrades in vain. With the clang of blades hitting the ground, the men decided to accept the enemy's conditions, hoping they wouldn't regret their decision. The only one who kept his sword was their captain. The warriors looked at their leader in astonishment, not understanding why he didn't disarm like the rest of the squad. The man leaped and swung at the remaining soldiers. The men looked puzzled at their leader's actions, not understanding what was happening. Myeonggo declared that if they reasoned this way, they had no pride and were not worthy to call themselves members of the Azure Dragon Squad because their behavior was offensive to the clan. Redbeard watched the boy with admiration. In a matter of minutes, this young man became far more interesting to him. He could call this swordsman even more insane than the bald one. The man was already looking forward to how interesting it would be to torture this young lad. He planned to flay him alive in a particularly sophisticated way. Myeonggo didn't want to hear even the voice of this villain. He ordered the man to shut up and pointed his sword towards the opponent. Concentrating energy at the tips of his fingers, the boy transformed it into the breath of the Azure Dragon and attacked Redbeard. The bald one laughed. The boy was a worthy student of the Murim leader, and his sword cut sharply, like a shark's teeth. Myeonggo was furious. He wanted to shut this old man up once and for all. The boy's face expressed all his thoughts at that moment. The boy transformed the energy into another technique and attempted to attack Redbeard with it. The man dodged at the last moment, and the energy disc flew over his bald head, narrowly missing. The uncontrollable energy hit the roof of one of the houses, causing the building to smoke and sway. Myeonggo sighed discontentedly. He was not pleased with his mistake, but there was nothing he could do to rectify the situation. Redbeard pondered that despite the boy's real power, he was quite young and impulsive in his decisions. Like all immature youngsters, he saw the battle tunnel vision, focusing only on one goal. The blue dragon sword sensed the approach of the white ghost and turned just as the man swung his merciless weapon over the boy's head. The boy's back was exposed, and the mercenary seized the opportunity to strike him while Myeonggo was focused on Redbeard's attack. On the other side, the second demon rushed into the attack. The defense of the boy looked like a sieve. Wherever he turned, the opponent could easily strike an exposed area. The sword of the man in the black mask finally reached its target and wounded Myeonggo in the side. The guy screamed in pain. Leaning on his sword, the warrior squatted on one knee and tried to recover. Sweat rolled down his face, and the wound caused severe pain. The white ghost said with ridicule that the reputation of the dragon sword is exaggerated. It is clear that the boy wanted to be one of the 9 dragons, but in fact he is nothing interesting. A man in black approached the guy and growled contentedly. He was about to complete the blow he had begun. Suddenly the black man's words were interrupted by the red-bearded man. He was rapidly approaching and ordered his partners to stop. The bald man wanted to leave the guy alive. Ordinary death was too banal and boring for him. He offered to take the boy with him to the lair of the Four and there continue to torture the dragon warrior with torture. Meanwhile, the monk and the grandfather in the hat continued their way in the valley. They reasoned that the person who defeated the Dam clan had a power comparable to that possessed by the elders of the Murin. The great monk noted that Yeon Hwi Chon did not belong to any of the branches of martial arts used for killing, but his companion did not understand what the big man meant. The grandfather thought about it. He assumed that the boy was still a member of some sect or was related to the Four Saints. Then the monk continued that in the entire history of Murim there was only one such person, an exception to all the rules. The grandfather did not know who his friend was talking about. Gon Sura, who lived 800 years ago, drowned the world of Murim in blood, but it was so long ago that not many people remember, and that warrior had no descendants. In any case, the men decided to hurry up, because Myung-go and the Blue Dragon squad were exactly walking on the edge of a knife and danger lurked for them at every step. It was written on the stone that the Nameless One was buried here, and so he remained. Hwi Chon carefully examined the stone with the inscription. Now he understood that this was the legacy of one of the immortal souls who lived on Earth. The hero opened the lid of the tombstone, where Gon Sura, deprived of the name, left his knowledge and incredible power. The text on the stone said that 2 hours outside is equivalent to 60 years of life in the cave, and only the most worthy, those with strong will and determination, will be able to achieve the result. Having entered here, a person had to devote 60 years of his life to study. Only after it was completed successfully, the doors of the cave would open again. Hwi Chon was persistent and diligent. He gained strength, experience, absorbed all the knowledge that the immortal Great Spirit provided him. The guy became a strong and skilled warrior, capable of protecting his clan from enemies like those with whom his fate had once connected. The hero knew that he must make the most of this opportunity if he hoped to confront great martial artists in the future. Episodes of the tragedy that occurred in the village of Yeon constantly flashed in his thoughts. When he could not protect anyone, this fueled the guy's hatred. The moment came when Hwi Chon mastered the knowledge, learned all the techniques and had the opportunity to leave the cave to return home. Meanwhile, Yeon province was on fire. The battle between the Blue Dragon squad and the bandits added to the fire, actively incinerating house after house. Redbeard's minions mocked the prisoner. On the one hand, this guy was the only one they left alive after the battle. On the other hand, he was very unlucky to become the prey of the executioner of the Red Moon. Myung-go experienced pangs of conscience. He could not come to terms with his position as a loser, but he no longer had any strength left to respond to the scoundrels. While the twins were holding Myung-go, the Redbeard returned to where he was interrupted. The man continued to torture Hwi Chon. He grabbed the girl by the shoulder, and she screamed loudly. Due to the sudden movements of the bandit, the mask covering her ugliness fell off the girl. The bald executioner didn't even pay attention to this and continued to threaten Hwi Chon with a parasite that would eat her brain if Hwi Chon did not give the child to the robbers. At the moment when the girl began to scream and beg to stop the torture, Myung-go found a second wind. He recognized the one he loved and could not find for so long. The white ghost kicked the guy and pressed his head to the ground so that he would make less sounds. Dragon Sword lost consciousness for a moment, and in a vision he looked at the charming Hwi Chon on the day he first saw her. The guy came to his senses and tried to gather himself and his inner energy together to help the girl. The red-bearded man did not waste any time. He took one of the worms out of the bottle and brought it very close to Hwi Chon's frightened eyes. Suddenly, the executioner heard an unfamiliar voice ordering him to stop and was surprised at such impudence. Turning towards the speaker, the bandit barely had time to jump away from the stick rushing towards him. Opposite the red-bearded man stood two men, a giant and a short one. The stick probably belonged to one of them and the bandit was curious who it was. The great monk folded his palms in a welcoming gesture. Despite the bloodthirstiness of the situation, he remained polite to everyone. The travelers asked how the thugs could still remain human while their actions were similar to the devil's machinations. The red-bearded man stared at the men. From their manner of behavior and speech it was clear that these were the next representatives of Murim, and they also decided to interfere in something other than their own business. The old man in the hat said that the bald executioner is the only one who practices torture here. Isn't the red-bearded one afraid of divine punishment? The man was outraged that some grandfather was making comments to him. He shouted at the traveler and said that they would deal with them too. Gwon Mu-young again put his palm in front of him and said that he accepts the will of the Red Beard and is not going to tolerate the devilry that he has created in this settlement. The twins looked at the great monk in bewilderment. They had heard about this warrior more than once and it was amazing to see him with their own eyes. The red-bearded man also knew that name. His mentor warned the man about how dangerous each of the representatives of the four, which included Mu-young, was. However, now he had two clever assistants on his side. By combining their strength, the thugs could have a chance of success. The executioner told his minions that in front of them was now one of the great Shaolin monks, and to end the battle with him in victory would mean leaving their names in history. Myung-go saw familiar faces and hastened to warn the travelers that the red-bearded man was one of the most cruel executioners. The guy winced in pain. His wound was serious and without timely help could become irreversible. The grandfather in the hat noticed the guy's poor condition and took his warning into account. The fame of the executioner of the Red Moon spread throughout the world, and the devilish twins were involved in this case. The monk shrugged and asked the old man to take care of the blue dragon boy after the man caught and interrogated the bandits. The trio of thugs stood opposite Mu-young with a smug look, the men thinking that their advantage in numbers would help break the great Shaolin monk. The giant took off his outer clothing, under which one could see the man's huge muscles, trained by many years of practice. The man stretched his stiff muscles and did several energy exercises to disperse qi throughout the body. With a cry for strength to come to him, the monk took a fighting stance and was determined to teach these disciples of the devil a lesson. The red-bearded man tried to joke, saying that they were not impressed with the monk's biceps and that Mu-young would not be able to defeat them so easily. The bald man gave the order to the twins to attack first and the ghosts rushed into battle, circling in the air. The black ghost tried to use the spinning sword technique, but missed, because despite his great height and muscles, the monk was very dexterous. The bandit needlessly underestimated his opponent, and Mu-young prepared his fist to teach him a lesson first. The great monk hit the ghost in the face, and the man's mask shattered into small pieces. The thug himself did several somersaults and fell to the ground, losing consciousness. The red-bearded man opened his mouth in amazement. Only before his eyes the black ghost was defeated with one blow. The white ghost was angry. No one could defeat the twins until that day, and what the monk did not fit into his ideal picture of the world. The man wanted to attack, but the bald man asked him to slow down. He would attack next, and when the monk opened, the time of the white ghost would come. The red-bearded man pulled out his huge sword and shouted threats to the monk, but in his thoughts the man hoped that he could defeat the enemy with the help of at least one of the twins. Mu-young looked carefully at the bald man. His aura lit up completely differently. The warrior decided to be more careful with this man. The red-bearded man used his lunar aura technique in battle, and the energy rushed towards the monk in a powerful wave. The blow was really powerful, and the giant barely had time to bend down so as not to take the full power of this energy upon himself. The executioner decided to repeat what he thought was a successful blow and again spun the ring of power around himself. This time the great monk did not dodge, but repelled the attack and told the man to try harder. Out of the corner of his eyes, Mu-young noticed a movement on the right. A white ghost was rushing headlong towards him, trying to attack while the man was busy fighting with his friend. The scoundrel managed to hit the monk with his sword, but Mu-young only swayed, pushing the parasite away. The white ghost was surprised. If this were a fight with an ordinary person, he would have lost his limbs long ago. The red-bearded man thundered in a sonorous bass. He really believed that the monk could not cope with two opponents, especially after the white ghost was able to attack the man. He again launched another energy ring at the thug and the monk deftly accepted its power. The old man in the hat was panicking. The opponents of the great monk were skilled warriors and possessed knowledge that only a chosen one could comprehend. Mu Young did not pay attention to the screams around him. The monk focused on his internal energy and froze for a moment, which could seem like an eternity to those around him. The man used the famous adamantite body technique, available only to 4 Shaolin monks. The red-bearded man knew about this legendary technique, and he couldn't wait to break through the man's armor to prove his worthlessness. At the same time, the white ghost admired the monk's skill. Just a few movements with his hands gave the man previously unimaginable power. His strength was worthy of admiration. The bald man attacked again. He was not original and was stubborn in choosing his most powerful technique to attack the enemy. Mu Young was detached from the world, focusing on his chi. The man was calm, and his aura shone brightly. The executioner's attack was a futile waste of energy. The ring of power shattered on the monk's aura and scattered into small sparks. The bald man was puzzled. He had seen this for the first time and understood that the man's invulnerability would become a big problem for his plans. Mu Young looked carefully at the opponents and said that both of them are weak and do not match his strength. It is best for the bandits to surrender now. He pointed his finger at the red-bearded man, warning the man that Wai Yung would not forgive the bald man for destroying his house, and if he caught him, the executioner would lose his head. If the thugs surrender, the monk guarantees that he can save their lives. The red-bearded man got angry. He didn't understand who this Yeon Hwi Chon was, about whom everyone was talking so much today. This irritated the man. The old man treated Myung-go, and hearing the words of his companion raised his head in amazement. How strong must this man be? If one of the 4 Shaolin speaks of him like that, probably Hwi Chon's strength is really great. The bald man rushed at the monk, saying that he only hears about Hwi Chon today. As much as one can talk about someone so unremarkable that the bandit doesn't even know him. The man launched another energy disc at Mu Young, this time seasoned with the executioner's irritation. The monk repelled the attack, although the blow was really powerful and Mu Young had to cover himself from the disc with both hands. The red-bearded man turned out to be a stubborn opponent, and even without causing significant damage, he confidently stood opposite the monk. Now the man was already angry with Yeon Hwi Chon and dreamed that this man would get in his way. Then the executioner would show the arrogant insolent which of them was truly a dangerous pepper. The monk saw the bald man's condition, but told his rival that he could not speak for the bandit, but even for a great Shaolin monk this guy could be a threat. Hwi Chon seemed to the giant to be a very skillful and well-trained warrior, who adopted the experience of an equally strong mentor and matured.
Didn't even get to cross.
Meanwhile, the hero's training was coming to an end. According to the guy, an eternity had passed, but in fact, only a few hours. Hwi Chon mastered strength practices, during which his bones were broken and transformed into something more perfect. The exercises of the second part of the training were closer to spiritual growth. Here it was necessary to devote a lot of time to meditation and the ability to concentrate. The man was a diligent student and mastered knowledge with the ease inherent in his life. The knowledge that he received in the cave was firmly absorbed into his mind. Hwi Chon felt how his strength increased. The hero combined in himself everything that the Great Spirit could convey and became a powerful warrior. Mu Young continued to fight the dishonest executioner, who ordered the destruction of the Blue Dragon Squad and tortured the people of the Yong village. Possessing enormous strength, the monk inflicted strong blows on the enemy, but the red-bearded man was agile and often dodged them, provoking his opponent. Pulling out his sword behind his back, the bald demon was about to attack the great Shaolin monk. The man waved his sword, cutting through the air. He was sure that luck was on his side, because so far the giant had not caused significant damage to the executioner. However, Mu Young repelled the red-bearded man's attack with his powerful fist, and the bald demon flew into the sky. Somersaulting in the air, the executioner did not understand how the giant was able to see the attack from above. In his opinion, the strong man was very clumsy. The red-bearded man landed on the ground and looked displeasedly towards the enemy. The man did not notice anything legendary in the monk. He began to furiously threaten those present, hoping to intimidate the warrior and his friends, but it was difficult. The monk decided not to delay and used his energy to its fullest. It seemed to the red-bearded man that the man had several extra arms. Having put all his power into the blow, the great monk attacked the enemy again, but at the last moment the executioner dodged. The red-bearded man kept repeating that Mu Young is clumsy and slow, and this does not do him any honor. Rumors exaggerate the monk's power. The bald man wanted to use his sword again, but his hand was intercepted by the enemy's huge palm. The thug turned the executioner to face him and swung his hand for another blow. Sparks fell from the red-bearded man's eyes. The blow was powerful, but the man remained conscious. He wanted to jump away from his opponent, but Mu Young caught his hand again and told him not to rush to escape, because they weren't finished yet. The monk used a striking technique, which inflicted maximum damage on the red-beard. The man flew to the side, combing the ground with his body, but still did not give up hope of defeating the giant. A white ghost ran up to the bald man. He wanted to make sure that his teacher was still alive. The monk took a fighting stance and asked the enemy if he had changed his opinion about the man's battle tactics. The ghost helped the red-beard get up, and the executioner hissed that the enemy was getting on his nerves. Watching the mutilated men, Mu Yun asked why they had come to the village and caused havoc. The great monk believed that this was the end of their battle with the red-beard and the enemy would not dare to fight further. The red-bearded man was arrogant and touchy. He did not want to tell about his affairs to the man who defeated him in battle. The grandfather in the hat realized that it would be difficult to get words out of the bandits and was going to send a dove with a message to Murim. As soon as the bird flew a few meters, something strange happened and it fell to the ground like a stone. The travelers stared in amazement in the direction where the dove landed. They were surprised to see Yun Si-ju. Watching the amazed looks of the men, the townspeople also began to turn towards the stranger who stood behind them. The old man picked up the bird from the ground and said that he was flattered by the attention of the men. The warrior did not expect that he would be recognized so quickly. He noticed that the travelers made the right decision, asking for advice regarding what happened from the chief Murim. The townspeople looked at the strange man with surprise. Then he extended his hand with a long nail to one of the residents of the settlement, and told those around him to carefully watch what was about to happen. The man's head suddenly exploded into small pieces, causing screams of horror from those standing near him. The bandits stared in awe at the old man who appeared. It was clear from them that the men bowed to his skill. The white moon looked at the thugs with disdain. He was dissatisfied that the men failed to cope with the task and he had to join the game. The man angrily squeezes the bird and is indignant that the bandits failed the simplest task. The bird flies to smithereens. He accuses his subordinates of the fact that these nonentities disgrace the reputation of their master. The great monk watched in surprise what was happening. This old man had developed his skills to the maximum. He would be a more dangerous opponent than the red-bearded one. Mu Young asked his companion for a stick, and the grandfather instantly realized why the monk needed the tool. The man caught the stick on the fly and made several movements with it, preparing for battle. The enemy confidently advances on the giant and notes that the monk is too annoying. Mu Young points the gun towards the white moon. He is ready to fight a strong opponent. The man grins as he watches the monk's actions. He does not see Mu Young as a threat to himself. Right in front of the white moon's face, he stops the stick that the monk swung at him. This was not difficult for him. The great monk watches in shock as the stick is engulfed in energy. He has never seen anything like this before. Taking advantage of the enemy's stupor, the old man seizes the initiative and shoots energy through the stick towards the monk. Mu Young looks in surprise as the stick begins to collapse in his hands, and the man cannot move it. Suddenly the weapon flares up and explodes, colored by the old man's poisonous energy. A white ghost attacks the monk from behind. The man does not see this and continues to defend himself from the old man. The companion shouted a warning about the attack. Sweat rolls down the face of the old man in the hat. He is worried about his friend. However, the giant did not have time to react and receives a blow with a sword along his back. The monk screams with anger and dissatisfaction. He did not foresee that the bandits would continue to play their dishonest tricks. With a roundhouse, he hits the man in the white mask in the face and breaks it in the same way as before he broke the mask of his black twin. The thug flies several meters and falls to the ground with a roar. The monk feels very tired. Almost his entire reserve has been exhausted. He touches the ground to regain his balance. The white moon sees that his opponent is exhausted and mocks him. He did not consider the monk a worthy opponent before. The grandfather in the hat also cannot hide his surprise. For the first time he sees how one of the great Shaolin monks was so boldly and recklessly snuck up from behind. Mu Young realizes that he will not be able to resist the new enemy and calls on his friends and villagers to escape as quickly as possible. He dared to take the final blow in the hope of buying people some time and is ready to sacrifice himself to save them. Headlong, the townspeople begin to run, looking back with curiosity, but without stopping their movements. Hwa Young remains behind the people, bending over the body of her father-in-law, the head of the settlement. The girl does not know what to do. Suddenly, a seemingly strong hand grabs Hwa Young's hair and pulls her back forcefully, causing discomfort. It was the red-bearded man who came to his senses. The man decided to continue torturing the girl and hands her a bottle of parasites. The white moon realizes that the monk's actions are his last push before the inevitable. He grins and wishes the man luck in his attempt. The old man raises his index finger with a long, needle-shaped nail and says that he always wanted to know how resistant the Shaolin monks are to his poison. He immediately puts his threat into action by pointing his hand towards the opponent. The great monk puts up a shield, covering his chest with his hands, but this does not save him from multiple injections. The skin on the man's hands becomes inflamed and swells, as if after a wasp sting. Mu Young experiences incredible agony from the poison that enters his body through these injections. The white moon says that he heard about the endurance of the Shaolin monks and the giant copes well with the poison in his blood, but everything is not so simple and the effects of the poison are long-lasting. The old man begins to count. 1, 2, 3. The injection sites swell. The man can barely restrain a cry of pain. The great monk understands that a little more and his body will be torn apart in terrible agony. Drops of sweat flow down his face. Suddenly, someone pours a powerful stream of vital energy into his body from behind. Mu Young cannot believe that he is saved. The giant's body is being cleansed of poison. The man literally glows from the inside while this process is going on. The old man and the blue dragon captain look in amazement at what is happening to their friend. The white moon is dissatisfied. He was going to enjoy the torment of the monk, but an unknown person disrupted his plans. Mu Young's body releases all the intoxication that his opponent subjected him to. The monk feels very tired and exhales with relief. The red-bearded man is surprised by how the most terrible poison known to him was neutralized, and Hwa Young recognizes his husband in the face of the stranger. Feeling better, the monk turns around to understand what happened and sees a stranger behind him. But Hwi Chon does not answer the giant. His gaze is directed at the old man. The hero asks the white moon if he is the one who destroyed the settlement. the old man looks forward in bewilderment. The stranger is angry, the fire of retribution burns in his eyes, and everyone who was involved in what happened is unlikely to survive. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave comments to help the new video come out as soon as possible. Have a great day.
Didn't even get to cross.